This time let's talk about how to make dinner. I want to use the idea of making dinner to explain why to use functions. And there's two things we can use, functions and object-oriented programming. We can use those to keep our programs under control as they grow larger. This is not a problem when we are making small programs, when we just type 20 or 30 lines like we have been doing until now. But programs can have hundreds or thousands, or some have even millions of lines of code. When you do such large programs, you cannot have all your variables global here declared at the top of the program and just use two functions like setup and draw. You have to subdivide the program in some ways. And that's why we use functions, and that's why we use object-oriented programming, which is something we will see soon. So I'm going to start here by typing the usual setup and draw functions. And this is already one way we have been subdividing the program. We have this block that we call setup, where we enter some operations which are related to starting the program, to setting things up. And then we have this other function that gets called over time, where we are drawing things. But even this is not enough. Sometimes when the programs start to get longer, then it's a good idea to subdivide this even more. So I'm going to use this example of making dinner to explain why it's good to use functions. Let's imagine we're going to type everything here inside the setup. So we're going to set the table and we're going to get ingredients to cook something. Ingredients. And we will cook, and later we will clean up the kitchen and the table. But of course, it's not as easy as just 4 steps. We know we have to do lots of things to prepare the dinner and eat and then clean up. For example, setting the table means put knives and means put forks and napkins and salt and pepper and water. So we know we have a lot of steps here to set the table. We're gonna need also some other things. I'm gonna just type them here randomly. For example, we will need a pan maybe and a pot. And for ingredients, we will maybe get milk and flour and butter. You get the idea. This list is gonna have probably 200 steps. After we have the ingredients, we have to mix the ingredients. Maybe we're making pasta and we're also making a strawberry cake. So one goes into the oven, maybe the other goes into the pot. So the whole process of having dinner has several hundred steps. If we have all the steps here in one sequence like this, it may look easy right now while we are doing this, but it starts to get confusing later. We have to search, okay, I'm doing the strawberry cake. Where is did I add here the sugar? You have to scan the whole list. It's all together, it's all mixed. You have the cleaning up mixed with the cooking and the cake, and the whole thing is one long list. It is usually said that functions shouldn't have more than 15 lines of code. I guess that's an average. But if you see that your function here has 200 lines, maybe it's a good idea to subdivide this in smaller steps. See how much better this looks like if I subdivide it in functions. I type here bake strawberry cake. And I will have here clean up. And I will have cook pasta. And also set table. Now we should define these functions. So I can go here to the bottom. I'm gonna get rid of the draw function for now. I will say here void bake strawberry cake. And here we will have everything that is related to baking the strawberry cake. So maybe the flour and the butter belong to the strawberry cake. And also the milk. What else did we have up here? We have cook pasta. So I'm gonna define a function called void cook pasta. And here we will have probably the pot. And what else? These ones here at the top, the knives, the forks, the napkins, and the water, these all belong to set table. So I'm gonna type here void set table. And we have those steps inside. So you can see that this thing that we used to be, I'm gonna delete this for now. We used to have this huge list here. Now it's much more clear. It has maybe 4 steps, and each of those steps have their own internal steps. Why is this good? I'm gonna write some comments here why functions are good. 1, it serves as documentation. We don't need comments, or we need less comments. In the previous version, when we had this huge list here, it would have been a good idea to specify here, this is making the cake. This part is making the pasta. Why? Because the list of elements in itself doesn't tell us. We don't know if the knife belongs to the cake or to the pasta or to the setting in the table. That's why we needed comments. If we are using functions with descriptive names, we don't need a comment here to say that this is going to make the cake, because the function name is already telling us bake strawberry cake. So we need less comments, and it serves as documentation. The code is easier to understand. Another advantage is that the code is more reusable. Code is reusable. So imagine the next day you're gonna make a different dinner. You're not gonna make pasta, but rice. Maybe you're gonna eat on the balcony, so you don't need to set the table, but you want to have the same strawberry cake. So in that case, you just have to copy this function, bake strawberry cake, and use it in your new program. In the first version we wrote, when we had this huge list here with 200 items, it was really hard to extract the cake baking part, because maybe it was all spread between these lines. Maybe the 3rd and the 4th line were related to the cake, and the line 50 and the line 56. But in this case, we have the program subdivided in logical steps. So it's much easier to reuse parts of your code in another program. And this will happen. As you work in one topic day after day, automatically you will start getting functions you can reuse. Maybe you have some functions to work with some colors you like. And you can then reuse this function with those colors in different programs. Maybe the programs are drawing totally different things, but you still can reuse these colors. Or maybe you want to reuse a function that does something with the mouse. Maybe it's detecting how you move the mouse. So then you just grab this part, maybe you grab this function you created that does something interesting with the mouse, and you use it in different programs that are drawing completely different things, but the mouse part is reusable. A third benefit is that it's easier to write the program. Easier to write the program. Why is it easier? It's easier because you can start writing your program here with words in your own language. For example, here there are in English. So you don't have to still think exactly how this is going to happen. You just think on the big steps, or which general parts does your program have. So you start here by writing bake strawberry cake, cook pasta. You still don't know what will happen in those steps, but it doesn't matter. It helps you define the whole flow of the program from beginning to end, and later you start digging deeper into each of those steps. If one of these functions would become too long, imagine that for making the strawberry cake you need 40 steps. Maybe that's a bit too long, so you could have another function here, which would be get cake ingredients. For example, maybe you have there 10 ingredients. So it's again helping you visualize what is going on in your program. First you're getting the ingredients, then maybe you are mixing them, and finally putting in the oven. One last thing I'm going to say about using functions is that each function should have one clear goal, not two. So if you're making here a function that's called bake strawberry cake, while you're getting here the ingredients for the cake, you shouldn't go and get the spaghettis, because this would make it again very confusing. So remember that each function should have one clear goal, and don't mix different concepts inside that function. Giving the function a good name can help you remember what is the goal. If you give it a vague name, maybe like bake, then maybe you don't remember, was it baking the cake or was it baking cookies? And then it can start getting confusing again. So yeah, giving good names can be all an art, and this is something you learn by doing it many times. As you write many programs, then you start seeing what are good names, what are useful names for your functions and for your variables. So I hope this helps you see why it's good using functions, so subdividing your program into smaller blocks. And next time, let's see another way of dealing with large programs, which is called object-oriented programming. That can also help us keep our programs organized.